Senator Kajwang and Honorable Sabina, if you're ready, please activate your video. We're starting now. Good morning. It's 18 minutes to 7 o'clock, and on this 5th day of January 2021. I almost said 2020, but I'd have added one, all the same. And we're talking this morning to Gladys Boss, Member of Parliament for Uasin Gishu. Karibu sana and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
We have Senator Mithika Linturi from Meru County. Karibu sana. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to all the listeners.
Great. And Senator Moses Kajwang is joining us via way of Skype. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning and a Happy New Year.
Right, and Honorable Sabina Chege is also joining us via way of Skype. She'll be joining us shortly to have this conversation. I want us to begin with, well, I'm told that Honorable Sabina is ready. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year too, and good morning.
Great, good to see you. And let's start the conversation with the latest in the world of schools, because we know that learners started streaming back to the institutions yesterday after a 9-month break for most of them, bearing in mind that it's only grade 4, standard 8 and form 4 that had been in school starting October last year. Let's listen to some of the concerns from parents and the learners themselves as they made their way back to school.
Out of school for a very long time in the history of learning in this country. So we expect to receive kids who have gone through a lot. Some of them have been border riders. Some of them have been through businesses. Some of them have been married. Some of them have married. So we are receiving some of whom are parents. So we need to guide them and counsel them to be back to school in good frame for learning.
Parents wanna make sure wanamchukulia mtoto yake mask, wanachukulia sanitizer. As in now sanitizer, mask ile vitu ya COVID imekuwa kama primary requirement. Vile wanachukua kitabu, lazima wachukue mask, wanachukua hiyo sanitizer.
This one I say I am a disappointed parents is that when a government tells its citizens that we will do this. They tell you this today, tomorrow they change their story.
We are so happy to be back to school. Yeah, we are feeling happy and excited. Yeah. Nimefurahia to meet my classmates once again, kuona walimu tena, going back to the usual. Yeah.
All right, so positive learners there getting back to school, but of course a very serious concern there, concerns about the mask and the social distancing. Honorable Boss, let me begin with you because you're here in studio, and I don't know what concerns there are in Uasin Gishu. Of course, looking at the country, in the public institutions, the biggest challenge, even to the admission of CAS Professor George Magoha, is about the social distancing. But what are you thinking about this resumption, which obviously is very necessary as we get back to the learning?
Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. And I think the biggest concern is the health concern. The biggest concern is, are our children going to be safe in schools? Because God forbid, even if one child gets sick or dies, then that is going to come crumbling down on all of us. So I think parents need to be persuaded, and I think parents should engage with each of the individual schools and find out what are the protocols that they have in place to ensure that children can social distance, that children can be able to sanitize their hands from time to time when required to do so, that they have the proper facilities to do so. We know very well that many schools do not even have water. Mm-hmm. Many of them do not even have bathroom facilities. Many of them, as much as there was a lot of talk about buying desks. It's not the desks that is the shortage. It is the space, the physical space in the classroom that we have actually been lacking even before COVID. Mm-hmm. And those are the conversations we'd be having. I would have assumed that a proper functioning of a country should be saying, let's put up, even if it's temporary housing, whether it's tents being mounted by our army, in order to create spaces for children to learn. Mm-hmm. But you can see that we had a very narrow view by just saying, let's buy more desks. But I'm not seeing where those children are going to sit. Why is it that in other countries we are saying the military coming in to assist in building the temporary housing? I haven't heard a single thing from the Kenyan military. They're supposed to help us in cases of emergency, just like this. So that is the fear that, that I have. As a parent, I am extremely worried because nobody has given us a logical explanation as to what has caused us to make the decision to open schools now. We closed schools in March when we only had 1 case in Kenya. Now we are opening schools when the cases are increasing. Nobody has explained to us what could have changed. I would have expected a situation where we say, can we open the tertiary institutions first? Then after a few weeks, you open the secondary schools. After a few weeks, the primary schools. Then that way, we are able to know what the spread would be like when the schools are open. But opening them all of a sudden, even the logic
but
to say that you stop
reopening of October 2020, don't you think we have learned a few lessons that would be useful as we go to the bigger
That was
scale?
a very small scale. We still had deaths, and we still had a lot of children testing positive. When you give me the logic and say that no political campaigns for 60 days, and you say because they are super spreader events, actually, schools are super spreader events. So it doesn't make sense. I would want somebody to explain to me how that logic came about.
Okay. Senator Linturi, what are you concerned about at the time that, yes, there's the reality in the schools that we don't have sufficient facilities or infrastructure that we can have, but then life has to go on. What are you worried about, and what do you think would be the solutions?
Yes, life has to go on, just as you've put it, but at whose expense? At the expense of losing Kenyans, losing small children, who we should be taking care of. I want to tell you with a lot of certainty and without fear of doubt or contradiction. I have come from Meru County. I visited 6 schools yesterday. Personally, I even dropped my own child to school. And it is really shocking, as both has said. There are no masks in schools. This I can tell you. There are no masks, and to intervene and even buy a few masks for those that I could afford. There are no water points in schools. Even the teachers told me, the principals told me that the little support that they get from government has not been sent. And the way we all thought, because of this hype about social distancing and everything else, government at least would have come with a method to increase capacity to hold children in classes because of the social distancing protocols that they have set out. I've not seen any fabricated kind of structure so that you are able to accommodate our children. What we find, what you find there is a state of desperation between the teachers and the others and the children. And even one of the schools that I went yesterday, I found over 100 parents waiting to see the principal or the headmaster because they are unable to pay fees in the boarding schools, and for that matter, they are taking back their children to the normal primary schools, meaning that they're economically hard-hit, they have nowhere else to go to, and I personally felt completely out of place, because that's not a situation I wish to see as a leader in that place. And if indeed there is no conmanship in this story about if you have to keep 1 meter distance and everything else, then even the Ministry of Health and the government should have come up at least with some kind of education and some basic haven't done some basic research to tell us why probably we are suggesting that children have to go to school is because we have done some scientific research and found that in young children between this age and that, the prevalence or the likelihood of spreading the coronavirus to children is so limited that our children have stronger immunity than those that are beyond the years of 50 years. And for that matter, we should not be worrying so much, but each parent has to take responsibility and ensure that our children have masks, our children, there's enough sanitizers. Tell me, how you expect a child in class grade 1, 2, I don't know how they are called, to get out during break time and not play or not interact or get into contact with our children. Our ministry, our government has become irresponsible in this matter, and we must tell them as is, because the greatest pain will be borne by the parent.
Let's listen to the Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, as he spoke about learners and the masks, because he says that it's mandatory for learners and even the teachers and staff at school to be putting on their masks, and learners must have at least 2, preferably the washables. Let's listen to him.
Apart from overcrowding, everything else is normal. Every child is properly masked. Most of those masks they are wearing were provided by the government of the Republic of Kenya, together with our collaborators. Otherwise, you have seen with your eyes that if we work together, the spirit, when you look at the spirit of the body and spirit of the teacher, the body and spirit of the children, do they require encouragement or discouragement? Let us encourage them.
All right, Senator Kajwang. So, of course, all these concerns that the 2 legislators raise are real. It is a fact that some of the learners may have reported to school without the masks. It is a fact that even as we saw on TV, some of the learners being given 2 masks. Those are just disposable. Some of them may be washables, but they may get lost. When you look at it, what is it that we must do to ensure that, because learners, I mean, children are children, what do we do to ensure that while there, they do not raise the risk of transmitting that virus and all the way to their parents and the community?
Thank you, Sam. Let me speak not as a senator, let me speak as a parent, because I'm a parent of children who are in the local system. And for your information, we have now taken advantage of this coronavirus pandemic to entrench inequality in this nation. The children who have been at home for the last 9 months, going through the CBC and the 844 system, will have to go back 8 months to where they left it in March, while the children of the rich who have been learning online using the Cambridge and American system do not have that disadvantage. They are continuing, they are progressing. And so a decision has to be made on how do we deal with the children of the majority of Kenyans who are in the local system. When children are out of school for 9 months, it sets the stage for a huge social crisis. You have heard one parent talking about children coming back to school as parents. And some, I've seen a lot of this in the beaches, particularly the areas around Suba in Homa Bay County where I represent, where because children have been idle, they've turned to the lake. And some of the girls might not even be coming back to school because of pregnancy issues and because of marriage issues. We have dealt with the education sector with the same level of incompetence we have dealt with all other sectors. And no one is innocent in this. We, the politicians, have been holding our rallies, and you have seen us in photos, including my good friend Mithika, being in public rallies and roadside rallies without masks, and therefore putting our children who are safely at home at risk. We have gone back to churches, we have gone back to clubs, we have gone back to air travel, we have gone back to unrestrained international travel. We have not even set up enough facilities at the county level. And so I wouldn't want to single out the education sector as the most incompetent in this. There's general incompetence across the entire country. But the question we must ask ourselves is that even as we pontificate, even as we members of parliament whose children are in international schools and are studying abroad, and education is going on in the United Kingdom despite a spike in COVID infections, what are we going to do with the watoto wa wanyonge who do not have any other option because online delivery failed? Whatever the government talked about laptops has never been delivered, and their only hope is to be in a classroom setting. Finally, Sam, our members of National Assembly should not be joining the bandwagon of those who are crying, because the national government CDF allocates about 100 million plus per constituency. They are the ones who should be telling us, like in those pictures that we have seen, children learning under structures that can crash anytime. What have they done with that money? Even before we call in the army to put up makeshift structures, what are our MPs, members of National Assembly, doing with the money? And they had an entire 9 months, almost 1 year to prepare for this. We must hold them to account.
All right, and Honorable Sabina, of course, you recently Or is it recently, or more than 3 years ago? You chaired the Education Committee, and so these are not foreign issues, especially on the realities on the ground. But when you look at a country that for 9 months we shut down, then sometimes in September we started thinking of how to reopen schools. We laid down measures including procuring desks, expanding the space capacity in different institutions. But the Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, when asked, he says that you cannot compare Rwanda to Kenya. There are issues with the disbursement of funds, the procurement processes. So what do we do as a society that is responsible to its young citizens? What should we do?
From where I sit, I think what we need to do is have collective responsibility. And pointing fingers and actually blaming each other will not help. I think I want to start from where Senator Kajwanga started, when he talked about the members of parliament, and especially the use of the money for CDF. We cannot just wait for the government to act. I know the Ministry of Education has tried. The desks are not enough. And what they did, actually in my county, very few schools have benefited from those tests. So it's a high time we as the members of parliament ask ourselves. We have talked about tanks that they need to sanitize. What is our role? We have the money for GAF that we can be able to buy a few tanks for a few primary schools or secondary schools, this is a process I started in Murang'a County when the other students reported back in November. Phasing out, they have tried. Other countries, they have opened the schools, they have learned their lessons, others have closed, others are still continuing. So there is a need for our children to go back to school. And as we have said, we have faced many challenges when our children have been out of school. And so for us, we cannot just say, let them stay at home, but we must come with solutions. I think COVID came to challenge us to think out of the box, to think out of the norm. And when we started the issue of laptops, a lot of us politicians fought the idea of laptops. And we had all these many excuses. Is there electricity? We tried the last mile connection, at least every primary school to be connected to the grid. But most of the classes were not even wired. But that was a lesser problem if we actually had continued with the laptop or even the computer program that was to come to the schools. So we as a politicians must lead. We cannot be complaining as Kenyans are complaining. We must sit down and ask ourselves, then how do we come in to assist the government? And when we talk of the government, who is the government? Yes, there is the ministers, but at the end of the day, money is allocated in parliament. At the end of the day, if there's money that comes in from our side, if it's the national government fund, the CDF, that should be able to allocate at least some amount of money to these primary schools. We need our children back to school. I have gone to our schools, and as Honorable Medika said, yes, the situation is not good, but what do we do about it? I have tried to donate a few masks. We gave 300 million to the Ministry of Health, and we urged the minister that the 300 million should be used for our students who are reporting back to school. So at least then the students will be given something or some mask by the government. The masks that the government was supposed to give are the reusable ones, not the disposable masks.
Right.
So if you're able to use that amount of money, that money was allocated back in May, last year. We should be in a position now to say as a government, there's this money, the reusable masks have already been made and distributed to our schools. If the challenges of the infrastructure, let's see what can we do and work together. We must help our children. And we have said majority of our children have not managed to learn from the time the schools were closed in March. Majority have no luxury of internet or even going online classes. And so it is a big challenge, but we must. This COVID came, and this is not only unique in our country. We have seen how excited our children are going back to school. But then with this excitement, then how do we also protect them? How do we make sure that they continue learning and we reduce the risks?
All right, and Honorable Sabina, there's a viewer on Twitter who is writing to us, Apora, Asiyapora, I don't know what that means, but they are saying that it's now 9 months since the first coronavirus case was reported. Why couldn't the government build temporary classes and dig boreholes in at least every school? Then he says something that I may not read on air, but I want to ask you the role of a parent, because especially in the public institutions in the countryside, they purely depend on the government for the free primary education program. But despite the challenges that they face, some of them are not able to afford some basic necessities. What role should parents now play despite the deficiency of resources across all sectors, whether it's in the side of the parents or on the side of the government?
The first role of the parent is just to talk to their students and their children. Yes, as they go to school, we must also be in a position to explain to them the importance of social distancing, the importance of washing hands, all the protocols that are there. And that is the first role where the parents should take before handing over the child to the teachers. Because some of these schools we have seen, they're also overcrowded. There are many. The teachers might not be able to fully control these students. So for the parents to actually explain to their children why they need to not to shake hands, why they need to wash their hands, it's very important. Secondly, I think the reusable masks, they have gone as low as 20 shillings. Some of them are even 10 shillings. And so if the parent is able to get at least 2, and I think I saw the minister saying that, so even if the government will complement with 2 more, then we'll be sure that even if the child will go and lose a mask, then at least they have a backup. And so parents must talk to their children, parents must keep contact and actually also ask hard questions. If there is a sign of there's something happening in school, because sometimes issues will happen in schools and the teachers will not tell the parents. I think that interaction between the child and the parent is very important, so that then they will be able to really communicate with the schools and assist also the teachers. Because as I've said before, some of these schools are overcrowded. The teachers will try their level best, but unless we work together, we assist the teachers, they cannot manage it by themselves.
Okay, all right. And Senator Linturi, I want us to exit from, did I hear something from Senator Kajwang? No, okay. All right. Senator Linturi, as we exit from this conversation, what do you think are the indicators of when we should change our focus? Because now we have reopened, yes. What do you think must happen so that we can say maybe we need to step back a little bit and close down the schools or consider other measures?
You see, some out of the experience that I had, and listening to Sabina, who is at the county, who is at the National Assembly, I think it suffices to say that even as we try to become so defensive, we must really appreciate that we have a duty unto ourselves as leaders and to our citizens. And we have a serious oversight role as houses of parliament to tell the public and to tell the government what they are doing correct, we will support them. Whatever they are doing wrong, we will tell them this is wrong. Because I asked that question to one of our members of parliament from Meru, and I have known that I can see Mr. The member for Gembe North, Kiringo. I asked him, my brother, we have a problem because we are so many around and children are just moving up and down. What are you people doing? Kiringo explained to me the extent he has gone to even look for his own money to buy water points because CNDF disbursement has been delayed. I would want anybody to tell us whether CNDF money is with the members of parliament, because they would have made the necessary interventions. And because this, we closed the schools 9 months ago, and there was that story and promise from the part of the national government. And because they knew this was to happen, how much have they put in terms of resources to facilitate the schools so that even the headmaster has some little money to buy MBAPs or whatever. Because I bought the 3, 4, 5 MBAPs for a classroom because the teachers, the headmaster does not have a coin. So we have to be very honest and very candid and tell the public that the government is failing us. They are not interested. They do not care. And I have no doubt, because if we don't tell the public what is happening, and we have now resigned to fate, we won't be failing this country as leaders. And it's really unfortunate because, for example, let me ask you, because we have just exposed our children. I'm a COVID victim. I thank God because I survived. And I lost my brother, the same thing. And people do not understand what this thing is all about. I never used to drive with my driver because I thought he was more exposed, and sanitizers spraying my car every time. And I didn't have any contact with anybody. But you never know. You know, you are fighting an invisible enemy called the virus that you can't see. So when we take our children, and you know, out of, I wouldn't want to use the word hypocrisy, but when we become so dishonest to the extent that we want to tell everyone else that, you know, you can only get corona in church, so you must be as few as possible. You can, in political meetings, you must be few as possible. And then I have a school at Kangeta whose population is about 7,000 children. How do you manage that one? our geographical area of our schools has not expanded. So you can't keep. So we have to be serious and tell the people the truth, so that even as we take our children there, tell the parents, expect these children will contact, will get coronavirus. Our counties and the national government, please ensure that you have enough oxygen in your hospitals. Because in the event that one requires oxygen support, we'll have so many children or many people dying out of this. And we must also tell our people, because this government is also very insensitive when it comes to taking or care of our sick people, that to treat a coronavirus case, and especially who has gone down into oxygen and an ICU, was not cost less than 5 million shillings. And our NHF is not paying for it. Government has through its emergency fund, whatever it is, has not set a single cent to cushion those families that come or go down with this virus. And for that matter, you must be willing and ready even to sell your land to collect your undead relatives or loved ones in hospitals when they die out of coronavirus. I'm talking from a risk perspective because I've been an insurer and I know what I'm talking about. Other than anything else, it is painful. Where the government or Mahoa and his team has taken us, we must kneel down and get back to God. It is only God that will save us because they have become very responsible.
And Senator Linturi, sorry for your loss. And as we exit from this conversation, Honorable Boss, so he raises a point that CDF money has not been released. I don't know that it's the same case with the MPs in your county. But every time we're told there is delay in disbursement, whether it's to the counties, whether it's to the programs that the Ministry of Education will to sponsor, whether it's to the CDF, what does it tell us about how much money we have in the coffers of the country, and as we move on to the things that we need to do as a country, or rather, how broke are we?
Yes, as Senator Linturi says, it is our duty to be honest to Kenyans about the actual situation. The situation is, I think the country is having challenges with money. We know that for a fact, because even the National Affirmative Action Fund, we only just received the first quarter in December, just before Christmas. Some of us were getting into programs that wanted to provide water tanks, provide bursaries so that children can be able to go back to school. But even now, the second quarter has not been received yet also. So there's been a huge delay. I have never seen a situation where money that's supposed to be disbursed in July is not disbursed until December, and even then in installments. Members of Parliament will tell you, even salaries were delayed for our field staff. I don't know if that was the case with you. They did not receive their salaries until the 15th. I think they received it in November, and that was for the salaries for October. And then they were told that they would receive the next amount on the 15th of December, which eventually came, I think, on the 23rd. So there is, we should tell ourselves, let's not kid ourselves. This country is having serious economic challenges, and it's a conversation we must begin to discuss. Even talking about, and just on one point so that I don't forget it, on the issue of the children. When people say that children are more immune or can be able to withstand the infection of COVID, that's not in fact true. It's only true for some children because most of the children who come from low-income families are actually malnourished. So therefore, they are actually predisposed to COVID more heavily than even 58-year-old people. And that is a conversation we're not discussing. There are kids who have only one meal at home a day.